Why does God make us so different from one another? Good morning, All Souls Community Church. Today is Tuesday, January the 19th, and I'm here with my brother, Tommy. You think he doesn't look like me, and therefore we can't possibly be brothers. But if you remember, the thing we talked about on Sunday is that as Christians, we have the one primary identity, children of God, part of the family of God, that unites us far and above anything else that possibly could. And so we have the same DNA, the same spirit that is inside of both of us. So we are actually brothers. And that brotherhood, that unity as a family is best revealed and is most powerfully revealed from the inside out. And so what we share unified is the Spirit, is Jesus, is being sons of God, brothers, therefore. And that then shows itself. It takes shape in the particulars that we call race and ethnicity and gender and all the things that as a culture, if we look from the outside in, divide. As the family of God, they unite us. And so I've got my brother, Tommy, here, and I want to ask him some questions because I think it'd be helpful for us to just interact a little bit about this question of ethnicity. So Tommy, thanks for joining us this morning, bro. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well, absolutely.
So question, what would you say your ethnicity is? You know, as you think about that as yourself. I've heard your answer before, so I'm intrigued to see how you're going to answer it this time. So what is your ethnicity?
My ethnicity. So, biologically speaking, I'm half Brazilian, half Portuguese, right? Brazilian blood coming from my mom's bloodline and Portuguese from my dad's. Culturally speaking, though, I would say I am what missionaries call third culture kids. And the idea behind that is there's more than one prevalent cultural norm in the house when you're growing up, and that combining with even more different, unique cultural norms in the larger society. So for me, that's growing up with Brazilian values from my mom's family, Portuguese families, values from my dad's family, and overall American values with my friends and the school system. I learned at a very young age to pick and choose. So I took a little from here, I took a little from there, and I formed my own, what we call third culture. So
wow,
it's very different.
Yeah, indeed, and very unique. Brazilian, Portuguese, American, all three put together, a third culture. I think for me growing up, we called that the Heinz 57, because that's me. I've got like 5 or 6 different, but several generations removed. And so I feel like it's hard to relate to the culture question realistically, other than just American, because again, so many generations removed. So, all right, a question for you. As you think about your culture, because one of the points, if you remember, we talked about on Sunday, was that we get to know our God. We get to see Jesus more clearly through the differences on the outside that show us why and how we're united on the inside. So when you think about your cultures or your culture, third culture, what is it? Where did you see Jesus, I think, most powerfully, if you don't mind, or maybe in a very specific way? Where did you see him? Or how does that take shape?
Yeah. So growing up, I went to a church in an urban setting that was founded by Brazilian immigrants. So a lot of the families I grew up around and a lot of the families that were in youth group with me were either first generation Brazilian kids or first generation American kids being raised by their Brazilian parents, which meant that we had a lot of gatherings all the time, especially as it came to spring and summer. It seemed like we were at somebody else's house having a party with 50, 60, 70 people on a pretty regular basis. And so growing up in that environment and growing up with not just mom and dad, but multiple men and multiple women who my parents gave free license to parent me as if I were their own kids, really defined for me differently what family looked like. A typical American cultural value, which is neither here nor there, but family is usually thought of as who you are blood related to. In Brazilian and other Latino cultures, that is not true at all. Family is not only that, but also who you choose to be family. And so for me, especially as a growing kid, since I didn't get to make that choice myself, it was made for me by my parents. Family was everyone I went to church with, everyone, period. I could get scolded by anybody as long as I was being scolded for the right thing, and it was okay because they were my more than just surrogate uncles and dads. They were second, third, fourth, fifth parents to me. The other interesting thing, all those gatherings really gave me an interesting perspective on when it comes to Jesus and faith is this idea of food. A typical Brazilian barbecue has it has its barbecue, it has its meats, it has its dishes, and then it has more desserts than it has sides and entrees. And I'm being 100% serious. There could be your chicken, your ribs, your beef, all that stuff, your rice, your potato salad, etc., etc. And then there are 4 different kind of cakes, 3 different kind of puddings, 2 different kinds of flans, a pie, like some weird mousse strawberry thing. Like they love their desserts. But it was interesting growing up with that and then hearing passages like John 6 where Jesus says, I am the bread of life. And yes, in that passage he talks about, he's the fulfillment of what God did for the Israelites in the desert, that manna that came down from heaven. Whoever feasts on him will never be hungry or thirsty again. But for me, it took an interesting point because food was central to our gatherings. It not only was, it was beyond necessary, right? It wasn't a gathering unless there was a copious amount of food for the copious amounts of people. And so growing up for me, when Jesus said he's the bread of life, yes, there's that salvation meaning, which is the real meaning he's getting at there, but it also took on this twist of, I'm necessary for everything that you do, that you're not actually gathering, you're not actually being a part of me unless I'm there. And that I couldn't even identify that I had learned that until later on in my young adult years. But it was definitely something I was intuitively taught.
Well, that's beautiful because that actually connects directly to another thing we talked about on Sunday, the takeaway, right? Which is the table fellowship, that we've been made to be a people who gather around food for a reason, because that's how we get to know one another. That's how our guard comes down. We can taste and see and delight in one another's cultures. And just hearing you speak about this, I actually feel that I was raised in the wrong culture. I believe I'm Brazilian on the inside.
Everybody wants to be Brazilian when it comes to barbecue. Everybody wants to be Brazilian. But the cool thing about that too is that while it was started by Brazilians, right, it usually happened at a Brazilian couple's house. It's not like there were only Brazilians there. Right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, when I was younger, a lot of the people I went to church with were Brazilians because it was a Brazilian planted church. So who would be the first to flock there? Other Brazilian immigrants. But as I grew older, my church ended up going from 1 service to 2 services, one being centered around an English-speaking service, and then a third one being added on later where it was a Spanish-speaking service. So now these gatherings and these parties had, 10, 12, 14 different countries represented, all different kind of shades of color. And it was still a Brazilian barbecue, but it wasn't just Brazilians there anymore. So it became a really beautiful picture of what it looks like for outsiders to not be outsiders anymore and to be included.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think that's a great challenge for us that, again, connects to what we talked about on Sunday, which is, what does it look like, All Souls Community Church, for us to be a place that includes everyone, that brings everyone, that says, welcomes in, no matter what your differences are. Come on in, and taste and see how beautiful this Jesus is as we get to know one another, as we love one another, as we get to know one another in and specifically through our differences. That's where we're going to get to know our Jesus all the more. And so that's our challenge for us this day and for this week, to really be praying about, what does it look like for us to be, and for you specifically to be, a part of a body that says, I'm going to value the differences. I'm going to pursue that, and I'm going to enjoy what it tastes like around this table of fellowship with believers who are the same family as I am, but who maybe look different on the outside and have much to teach me, even as I have to teach them about who our God is in the different flavors that he has chosen to reveal himself in. And so will this day be full of that for all of us? And thanks, Tommy, for giving us such a concrete example of what that looks like today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love having you in the family, brother.
Yeah, same. Glad
Blessings, everyone. Take care.